Welcome to Shanghai Dan, a raw and lively regular debate about the intersection of global tech, advertising, creativity, and platforms. I'm Bryce Whitwam.
And I'm Ali Kazmi.
You know, Ali, we always say visit our website, John Station, to indulge in our library of past episodes covering every imaginable marketing, advertising, and China topic, culture. It's all there. Go to John Station, ZHAN station.com. This is episode what, Ali? You should know this by now.
That's it. Lucky number 88.
That's right. It's lucky number 88. Pasiba. That's right. It's also the name of the supermarket that we go to in Chicago here. The local Chinese supermarket is called 88. So this is out to them, sponsored by 88 Supermarket here in lovely Chicago. You know, Ali, there's been a lot of news about the decline of the agency network model. And, you know, we've discussed
No idea
this.
what you're talking about.
I know. But the reality is that we have discussed this many times on the podcast. The landscape defined by AI disruption, platform dominance, talent migration, and the collapse of legacy holding structures, agencies are now forced to reinvent themselves fast. The question many are asking, I'm asking the question, you know, what would a new agency look like today if we're going to build it from the ground up? So to discuss this, we are joined by our good friend, Jacco Schegget. He is a board-level advisor and a former CEO of Publicis Groupe Benelux and JWT Southeast Asia. Jacco also worked with us at WPP during what many are calling the tail end of China's golden years from 2014 to 2017. He was the president of OgilvyOne China. OgilvyOne's back now, isn't it? That's right. Yeah. OgilvyOne is back. That's right. OgilvyOne is back.
Different format.
Okay, different format.
Former boss as well, by the way.
Oh, that's right. Okay. All right, cool. But talking about our topic today, I can't think of anyone more qualified to talk about this subject. We're not going to talk about nostalgia and Mad Men episodes and all that fancy stuff. We're going to look forward. So, Jacco, welcome.
Good to be there. Good to see you, Bryce. Good to see you, Ali. Hi, guys.
It's great seeing you, man. It's awesome. I know we've seen a lot of changes I mentioned in the intro. What do you believe are the biggest forces shaping the future of marketing agencies today? Of course, a lot of AI-obsessed headlines. Of course, AI is contributing to that, but what else is reshaping the model beneath the surface?
If we want to know how the future of our industry and of agencies look like, I think we first need to look backwards. You know, before I joined the industry, I always wanted to be a history teacher. So if we look back a good 2 decades ago, we had the internet wave changing the industry. And it wasn't only internet that was changing the industry. It was internet that was amplifying a couple of themes and trends that were already there. And whether it was after the Cold War, the globalization of the business, we saw brands entering China. We saw the whole internationalization, further internationalization of advertising. We saw there was a huge M&A boom. We saw e-commerce and Amazon picking up pace. We saw mobile phones. Finland was at that time with Nokia, hugely influential country. We saw the mobile phones basically enabling us to do 24/7 content creation and access. So that was all amplified by that first big wave. And now we see that second big wave, which is, as you said, it's AI. But if we want to plan for the future of our industry, we kind of need to see what elements AI amplifies. And we see on one hand the collapse of the big holding company structures that were much fueled by media dollars, as we all know. But we also see that platforms are going direct. Zuckerberg basically saying, okay, you know, give me all your money, I will deliver you conversion, I will deliver you eyeballs. That's all amplified because of AI. That was already a trend he's been working on for a decade. We see the explosion of retail media, you know, bottom funnel transaction combining with content. We see in-housing, clients taking more and more businesses in-house, which is now arguably becoming much easier because of artificial intelligence. And last but not least, we see social content creators using all generative AI to basically put all that content out there. And all these things were happening already for some time, but now they're all amplified because of artificial intelligence. So I think if we start to look at how our industry will look, we kind of just not need to look through the spectrum of AI, but we need to take a broader look, similar to 20 years ago.
I mean, how much of the issues in the past were organizational versus I appreciate the fact that you're saying that the changes in technology. One of the things that Publicis did, you worked there, seemed to get it right. People say that they had the right model versus the others. Was this more or less not the fact that they embraced technology faster, or they just got their organization, they got their shit in order much faster better than the others?
Yeah, I think as you say in English, posing the question is answering it, Bryce. I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think where all the holding companies now are going is they're collapsing all the brands, they're collapsing the P&Ls, they're centering around technology, data. Publicis just was a decade earlier, and they made some really good strategic acquisitions already with Sapient in the day that enabled them to have boardroom digital transformation conversations. Then they bought Epsilon, where they put a stake in the ground around data and identities. And at the same time, what they were doing through the strategy of the power of one is they were combining all those local P&Ls and all those brand P&Ls all on a country level. And I think we all lived through the cases in our WPP days that we were all representing a different brand and we were working on the same client, and someone had sold also a unified client team made up of all the best experts from all the different brands. And in many cases, we just could not overcome the P&L issues.
I remember countless dinners and events with Sir Martin talking about horizontality on the one hand. Yeah. On the other hand, he would say that, yeah, kiss agencies, we kiss and punch. That was his approach, that there was this chaos existing amongst this horizontality amongst everyone. We're just like clamoring for the same money, also trying to be loving as well, but then like maybe not punching necessarily in the face, but maybe in the back. And this kind of conflict existed within the organization, and it seemed obvious to everyone at the time that maybe they should we should integrate and join forces, and having this kind of this franchise model just wasn't working. I was always so curious, like, why did it take so long to realize that? And I guess just Publicis jumped ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, yeah. And it makes life just easier. And it's also much fairer to the talent. I recall one time we did a huge pitch for an airline and we had like 4 agencies assembled, and it was in December. And one agency, obviously the media agency, they just came from a meeting where they heard what all their bonuses would be. And my agency, just heard that, times were dire and they didn't get they didn't get an end year bonus. And another agency, the guys also didn't get an end year bonus. And then we all were expected to pitch with the same passion for that same client. And it just did not feel fair. So I think with Publicis, I think it's more all for one and one for all.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
Wonder, I mean, we've seen a lot of that restructure, or greater unity, I'll say, in WPPs today, in IPG and a number of other groups as well. How much of it is unification of P&L versus leadership as well? Because unifying P&L possibly also entails letting go of some leadership as well, or people that are senior in organizations. And we talked about this with Mark Heap on an earlier podcast, and he was of the view that some of this talent, some of this leadership talent should be retained, and perhaps take helm on client roles and things like the client interface roles. Do you think both come hand in hand, or do you think one, you could still operate a single P&L with the same leadership structure? Because it feels like Publicis, I don't know, did Publicis also, change some of their leadership, or how did that work?
Well, I think at the end of the day, if your role on earth is to support the client in his or her growth, you need senior talent to help and orchestrate that growth, to assemble all the capabilities that a network has. And that comes with air miles. So also in the future of AI, maybe we get to talk about that later on, you need senior talent. Now, what that senior talent does, that's different. So with Publicis, a lot of our senior talents, they were focused on building value for the client and not running a P&L. And if you got like 5 MDs or 10 MDs on a country level, yeah, they're all looking at their numbers. They're all managing the system. It takes them 2.5, 3 days out of their week just to manage that P&L and to do the numbers. If you can take that just away and direct that energy to manage the client and build value for that, that's like a tremendous energy you unlock.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was probably the greater challenge for WPP at the time, and I think things have changed since then, or at least of late. That that client leadership has been replaced by experts, so that's good to know. The other kind of looking back into history, this thought on, and I know we don't want to dwell too much time, but what made agencies that big? Because when you look back today, it's surprising at how large advertising networks were able to become over a fairly short period of time. What do you think drove that growth? Like, it just seems, it seems conflicting for me today to kind of think back and say, holy shit, like WPPs and Publicis and IPGs and Omnicom so big. Why did that happen?
But it's a valid question, and a lot of activities got automated right now. Still remember in the early days of internet, you need to make all those GIFs, you need to build all those websites, you need to create all these front-end HTML driven environments, and then you need to connect them with the content management system and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, those development times have shrunk. They're a fraction of what they used to be. And as it was still hourly based business, you needed a lot of talent to put those websites together, to create those beautiful campaigns. If you look at in the day, if you were going to go on set and all the people you needed in post, there was just much less post activity. Shoots lasted longer. So to create content, you just needed more people. That's one. Mm-hmm. And you can also project that then to the future, because the time to create content will reduce. So ergo, you need less people. But another thing that happened is that a lot of talent has moved in-house into the clients. If you now look at every big client and even small clients, they have much larger internal studios, content departments compared to 10, 15 years ago. And those people don't sit on the agency side anymore. They sit on the client side. And if you look at it through a media lens, every big client now buys at least part of their programmatic media, right? That used to sit all at agency side. So on one hand, the people on the middle side of the agency pyramid, of the talent pyramid, they have reduced, because on one hand, those tasks have been automated, and on the other hand, many tasks have moved to the client.
Yeah. If I take like 5 steps back, once upon a time, advertising network added value for advertisers. So as the market cap for Coca-Cola's and McDonald's of the world grew, so did that of the advertising agencies, as they started in-housing or insourcing creative services, media services, and the value of that advertising networks offered started to decline. So I wonder if there's like if there's correlation between what an advertising agency does, and as a result, we are seeing what we're seeing today, because there isn't much value an advertising network can offer the marketing department or the executive floor in a big MNC.
When I was started in agencies, when I was leading agencies in China, we had total access to the C-suite of a client. And then later in my career, when I was at MRM, it seemed that it was more and more disconnected, and we didn't have that relationship. And I think part of it was that we didn't provide any strategic value to the senior clients, as opposed from when I could easily walk into any of my clients and walk right into the CMO and have a conversation. But that's became more and more separated. And even I thought that was a China thing. I thought that was just existing in China. And I was surprised to hear from my American colleagues that they said the same thing. They said, oh, we just pitch for projects all the time.
it also depends where you are a little bit. I mean, we on one hand are talking about the marketing value chain in its entirety, and we're not just talking about advertisers. I think people
Entirety.
agencies, yes, advertising agencies. I think in that case your observation is completely right. When I was still overseeing Publicis Benelux, we were also in charge of 500 million media billings. And if one of your if you're in charge of a couple of million for your clients, you get to see the C-suite once or twice a year because you're managing millions on their behalf, so they want to know what you're doing. So I think many media agencies still have access to that C-suite. And another thing is, if we look at the marketing value chain from a broader perspective, if you're in the digital transformation business, whether you're a Sapient or whether you're an Accenture, it doesn't matter. I put these agencies still in the marketing services environment. They have often definitely access to C-suite, CTO, sometimes CMO, because we talk about huge capital investments if a new platform needs to be implemented. And they want to be part of that conversation. On one hand, where advertising agencies were driving the agenda, the importance, and you can argue whether it's justified or not, of brands has diminished, but many other players still are much more there. Same as the consultancies who are playing their part in that whole marketing value chain.
Makes sense. So I guess it gets to the big question today. What do you think, if you were to build a marketing services platform from scratch today with your own money or someone else's money, what would it look like? How would you build it? What would it look like? Do we answer the question, do clients really need agencies? I guess we think that they do.
It starts with that. Yeah, it starts with that. It started, why do clients need agencies? I mean, it's not charity. I mean, so I think clients will always need agencies. And I think there's two lenses. Why do they need agencies? And the second lens would then be, okay, what's the organizational design? What's the shape it should take? And clients, while they still are in-housing more and more, many clients will never in-house 100% because if they're in the business of building beautiful cars, that's their core business. If they're in the business of baking beautiful cookies, that's their core business. So marketing is not core business for many clients, it's secondary business. So you need a partner who will keep you honest, who makes sure that even if you have your in-house studio, you're not just talking into an echo chamber. There's external perspective. And as a client, and you have your own in-house agencies or agency capabilities, because you know a lot about your vertical, you're lacking innovation. You're not in the know of the latest tools, processes. So there's a lot to be said for a partner who will keep you and driving your top line, who will enhance your own capabilities, who will keep you honest, and who will bring innovation every time. So I think that there definitely is room and always will be a right to exist for agencies. And then the second one is that the shape of agencies will change. And before we answer what shape will these agencies then take and where would I put my money, right? I think we could learn from a couple of industries that are related and we can take some pages from their playbook. So for instance, we all lived in China. We worked in China. Chinese agencies, Chinese companies work in a very distinct manner. They're very aggressive. They're very much experiment driven. If it doesn't work, they discard it. They just keep going. And as a result, they are able to work in a hugely competitive and dynamic environment. So I think we need to take a couple of these pages from their playbook. And then the second one is, if we look in marketing, I love looking at gaming companies, how they organize themselves and how they build themselves around the products and the services they use. And gaming companies are the Formula One teams of our industry because they're very aggressive. They're very much conversion driven. They use a lot of customer experience patterns. So they take the best from customer experience to acquire clients, to get them to cross and upsell. They focus very much on the mid funnel. They have integrated creators, influencers So if we're going to construct this new agency model, I would look at China, I would look at Formula One companies, and then basically chart a new model based on some of these elements.
I'm gonna challenge you a little bit, and this is also this perhaps goes into the application of technology and maybe a future state. But if I think of companies like Coca-Cola, for example, I think of a company that is essentially a marketing organization. And if we fast forward into other industries, at least manufacturing, a lot of product is OEM. And could you argue that that in fact increasingly, given that there's going to be ownership of and proximity to customer, it's something that's it's something that's intrinsic to future companies, because a lot of production, manufacturing, OEMing of products is just going to be outsourced to someone else. And if you look at just supply chains, it's so distributed, you're actually just left with how well do you understand the customer and how well you can sell a product, and everything else is externalized. Is that a future state that we expect to be in almost any industry where we're making anything?
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. And we, in our China days, we have lived through these facts that we had local Chinese companies who were doing OEM business and then wanted to create their own brand. And we worked for a shitload of them. But the thing is that you need to be able to work in a very dynamic environment, because where your customers are, where the eyeballs are, they are changing. How you connect with them is changing. How you will get your conversion, it's changing. So your agency that you create need to be very adaptable, and it needs to be able to flex with a changing market. And I think that the Chinese are brilliant in that. Same as gaming companies.
I agree.
So prime prerequisite for any new model agency is that it needs to work in a very dynamic environment, but it also needs to be structured together with a client. So it always needs to be hybrid. It always needs to augment the client and the client capabilities. I think that would be the number one prerequisite for any new agency model you're going to bring to the table.
What is it that agencies cannot offer that agencies will offer? Where do we draw the line in terms of what an agency will offer versus what will be?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think where agencies need to be better is they need to be better to speak enterprise. They need to be better to go up in that boardroom, what we just said. And those C-suite or senior conversations probably need to be held by someone with quite a lot of air miles. They need to understand, how do clients operate? How does the client vertical work? And how do they help the clients to orchestrate their marketing effort throughout the entire value chain? So you need more senior people with the capability, on one hand, to orchestrate, because life is becoming much more complex than compared to a decade ago. And on the other hand, what you need to offer, especially in times of AI, is taste. If your business is to work within popular culture, you need to be able to curate the content that you will create on behalf of, together with the client. And that's basically a great case for creativity.
That's right.
Yeah, the market's too unpredictable and too dynamic to be able to rely solely on artificial intelligence tools. You still have to make the call. Where do you see the strategist's role in that, Jacco, in that type of dynamic environment? Is it changing from what we previously knew as a strategist to be the voice of the consumer? Maybe it still is. Where do you see that certain skill sets need to be added to a strategic planner's role and responsibility in the new agency format?
Yeah, it's a very good one. So I think everything starts with the voice of the consumer, and everything starts with, are our clients waiting for this product or service? How they construct that answer basically needs to be augmented with more understanding of the entire spectrum. So clients will have strategists in-house as well, and they should. If we talk about agency strategists, they need to become much more broader. They need to understand a little bit of media. They need to understand a little bit of technology. They need to understand a little bit of brand. They need to understand a little bit of digital transformation. So they need to become these properly T-shaped people.
Agreed.
But if a strategist doesn't add anything to the table to the client, if he doesn't challenge the beliefs of the client, yeah, then there's no business for this strategist. I mean, audience data is becoming much easier to get, synthetic data, you name it. So helping the client to orchestrate and to identify how do we reach these clients and our consumers, and how do we create the touch points and the content on those touch points before we start producing them, not afterwards, but before, that becomes very important. And the second one is that the strategist is guiding the first step of taste. What do I mean by that? If it just becomes so easy to create an avalanche or a whole pool of content diarrhea, we need to start to understand what does good look like. And that's always a dancing to with a strategist and a creative.
Yeah. Hey, I was gonna, I don't know, these days I don't know what good taste is anymore. It seems like the platforms determine that for you. And it's, when you see some of this content that goes viral, it's not understood because sometimes, you don't understand the
but taste is
culture, you
always
don't
Ali.
understand context.
It's always relative, eh? What's good taste to me is different than to my 50-year-old daughter. So taste is always relative.
I was waiting for a jab. I was like, hey, Ali, but that. I was waiting for a jab, and then I was like, oh, what a rational answer.
I'm going easy on you today,
I
Ali.
know you are.
I remember that Mark Reed said something once describing the difference between agencies and consultancies. And he said, this is a while ago, he said that consultancies don't hire creatives. Consultancies are very data driven in terms of their strategic interpretation, whereas agencies have creative people who we all know and love. And probably the single biggest reason I got into the agency business is just to work with creative people, is that they feel what's right. They feel what good taste is. They look at and say, you know what, I don't feel that's right. I don't think that's the right idea. And Mark's point was that you can't pay people enough. That's off the data. The data doesn't say that. And ultimately you need referees in these environments and they happen to be creative people who just
exactly,
fundamentally think in a different way. Is that essentially we talked about the strategist, but is there a role for creativity in this new agency?
Yeah, very much so. And it could be that it changes. So if we now see where all the action now is in the mid funnel. It's in the social platforms, it's in creators, influencers, a little bit less on the brand side. So there's a huge creative energy in all those social platforms, what's taking place there. And I think it's a very exciting time to merge creators with creatives that are working in agencies and maybe even with creatives on the client side. And someone needs to orchestrate that, and someone needs to have a point of view about what good looks like. And I think there's a huge role for proper curious creatives to play there, because that's basically what will distinguish your brand from other brands. Do you perform better in social channels? Do you attract more people? And all those algorithms, they're not only tuned anymore to just push certain brands to pay, if they pay enough, it's also about having the competition with the Netflixes of this world, with paid for content. So great content that will resonate with users basically becomes much more important. And to have that, you just need the creative person.
Yeah. I one of the thoughts that also comes to mind is it's not only yes, it's a creative person. I think the creative person partnered with is also someone that is given permission to look at customer from a different lens, right? Because if you're a brand manager, if you're a marketing manager, or if you're an insights person, your day is organized against what is expected of you in that organization. But a creative person is kind of like the headlights of a car that's driving in the dark, if you will, because you love to look at things in a different lens. The strategist might be someone that sits next to the driver, and the driver is still a client, but sits next to the client and kind of gives you a bit of direction. And so, and I think as an agency people, or as an agency, a leader, creative strategist, I think what brand managers or marketing managers that are in-house are not given that permission, or they're not paid to think outside of the box, and you need an external point of view to kind of shape, rejig, understand consumers in different ways, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's where opportunity continues to lie.
I got a question regarding talent in this new model, because one of the things that we're finding, and all of us, if we look at how we started in the industry, was really doing a lot of boring execution work, which was, now fundamentally replaced by AI tools. It's so unbelievably fast to be able to create content instantly, prompting AI models to, with audience, with thematic content, and they can just rip out like tons of content so quickly, much better than a team of juniors could. So my worry is that agencies will no longer need entry-level people. And if that's the case, then will it be, in the new agency model, will it just be senior level consultants, and much of the execution work will no longer be needed from junior level staff? If that's the case, then how do you effectively grow an industry if you're only hiring senior level people?
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. I think all levels are needed, senior, mid-level, junior. We just have established the fact that in this complex world, you need a certain level of seniority. We also have established that to create content, automation, artificial intelligence, it just speeds up the whole process. But you also need people to understand the zeitgeist. And if the action now is in mid-funnel, you need people who understand and how to connect with junior creators, people who operate in a space between 20 and early 30. So you need an interface to that part. I think there's definitely, you need your younger entry-level people there. That's one observation. The second one is that, and we can maybe talk about business models later on. Everyone now says, okay, we need to get away from the hourly-based revenue model. But right now, that's still the predominant revenue model. Forget media agencies, they still have commissions and all that kind of stuff. But if we talk about an hourly based business, then you can't just engage a senior for every job. It's the same as if you got a complex legal question. You get your partner at the intake. He's got his team that he will need to optimize in terms of cost, mid-level juniors to take on the task, and then he will be there, to present it. In a way, that's the same in modern agencies and the future of agencies, where a lot of the tasks, what we just discussed about, they will be eliminated or they will be much quicker. But I do think you need all the levels of but it could be that we just will need to do with less talent and things will go quicker. So these junior people, you will need to understand the zeitgeist to connect with younger audiences. And my hope is that by allowing a little bit more efficiency in the agencies will be better structured and therefore will be a little bit more profitable, and giving the juniors the same opportunity we had to be mentored by the seniors. Because the first time I went to a client, I was like a rabbit in headlights, and luckily there was a client service director showing me the ropes. And a lot of people now in agencies I help and consult, we got fantastic young people, but our business, it's not a business you learn from a book. You need to learn it on the road. And that's even much more important in this super complex environment that we just talked about.
I was going to crack a joke and say that to a millennial working in advertising today. Like, have a millennial work after 6 p.m. Impossible. Like, get them to come into work by 9 a.m. Even more difficult.
No, yeah, but that's also
I get them excited.
No, but
it's like no one wants to work in an agency these days.
Yeah, but you're a millennial, Ali. I mean, Gen Z, if you hit their passion points, they still want to. They still,
because I'm an educator, and this bothers me every single day about what we should be teaching young people who are interested in getting into the industry. What do you think are some of the skill sets that are not, that you find that are not that junior people do not have, but they really need to have. If they're going to like future-proof their careers and they want to get into an industry, besides obviously coming to work on time and having good social skills and things, what are some of the skills that they really need to have? What are the elements, let's say, that are currently lacking in your future agency model?
I think in the past, I've always been overseeing agencies that are working with innovation, whether it was in my Tribal DDB days or OgilvyOne. And as we can't predict the future, what we do need is foundational skills. So if you're in the art part of the agency value chain, if you create content, it does help that you know the fundamentals of photography. If you know how to place an object, if you know how a diaphragm works, if you then really quickly automate it or you just prompt, that's one thing. But you do need to know the basics. And I do believe that goes for every part of the agency value chain. So if you're in the generative part and if you're working with content, you do need to know the basics about photography, direction, and art. If you work more on the strategy side, it does help that you need to know how your scientific methods work to separate the wheat from the chaff, to understand, this conclusion that ChatGPT is giving me, is it actually bullshit? And how big is the sample size and how does it matter? And is there a difference between a relative or absolute changes? So I would dare to say that going back to some foundational elements are super, super important.
No, it's cliche, but I always think that we need, and I know we talked about T-shaped and all that entry-level people need to have a stronger sense of sales and selling channels. If they're going to be mid-level funnel experts, they need to have that experience. I think one of the things that we said last time with Majid Ali was, he mentioned about the democratization of entrepreneurship. And if that's the case, that it's so much easier now to become a brand and so much to represent brands, then people should have at least foundational experience about all the tools and things that exist within the e-commerce, social commerce world that will enable that to happen. Because I really feel that those skills are really in demand amongst brands and amongst agencies, that they just don't seem to have enough, at least from the senior level people who are completely lost in many cases about middle, lower level funnel type of things.
Activity.
Top level, they're good, they know all that, but I mean, that's becoming less relevant, as we've just mentioned on this episode. Given the new agency model that you want to create, what are, I guess in summary, what are some of the things that you would keep within a current model, and what are the things that you would get rid of? What would be the keep and kill, columns? What are the things that would be on top of the list?
This is where we should do the fast fire, was it? Round, where just say a couple of words and then see if we keep it or lose them.
There you
Global
go.
CEO, keep or kill?
Keep.
The driver, keep or kill? Agency driver, keep or kill?
Kill.
The media director, keep or kill?
Keep.
The head of the art department, keep or kill?
Kill.
Copywriter.
Keep.
The production director.
Kill.
Oh, so I guess what you're driving at here is there's a lot of keeps. So you're looking at a lot of the day-to-day execution stuff. Maybe that would, with AI tools and technologies and a lot of things, that would be a kill, and that we move much more on the consultancy, much more a senior level side of things.
Yes, because I assume an executive creative director has a sense of taste and can talk with clients and can tease out what a client's definition of good is. So you definitely need to keep him or her, rightfully so, Ali. So I think next to the keep and kill and generally speaking, I think there's a couple of elements that you need to structure your agency around. It needs to be hybrid. You need to do it together with a client, right? AI is a given. So basically we can talk at length about it, but it's there. You need to work with it. And that should be front and center. I think the flexibility we've seen and we talked about of Chinese companies or gaming companies that need to be there. Agencies need to be scale based on the job and the assignments they get, and they need to build a larger ecosystem. I think for the foreseeable future, mid-funnel, social, the awareness part of retail media, super important. And last but not least, what we did not talk about is basically creating your own OS, your own operating system. Your agency needs to own a defined set of tools, processes, and talent that will work in orchestration. So having your own operating system is super, super important. That doesn't mean that you need to build everything yourself, but you need to pick and choose of the specific tools out there and the platforms there. But you need to have a point of view.
I was getting very uncomfortable for a moment. I was like, oh boy, because that was going to open another can of worms. I was just thinking about how a lot of that's defined by platforms themselves. And there's still, there's going to be a round of consolidation or just aggregation of services and systems that enable the creative media function. And when all of that happens, then there's going to be greater clarity. But I was a bit worried. I was like, oh no, don't tell me another AI tool engineered by an agency.
No. Far
no
from
more
it.
of those. Yeah. Okay, great.
No.
Fantastic.
Well, at least they can customize and specialize things according to the client needs. I think that's the magic sauce here, because essentially a lot of clients will be different. They'll have different needs, and that it's not a one size fits all. Coming up with our set of tools versus your set of tools, which I think a lot of clients.
But you need to make your decision, and you need to pick a point of view about your own operating system. And if the client's got their own tools, of course you integrate with them. If they don't, then you should deliver.
Got it. That's really interesting. Well, Jacco, it's been really fascinating discussion today. It's been so interesting. I look forward to seeing models similar to this. It's of course an ongoing discussion. This is the market's dynamic. I think no one really knows specifically the real answer, but this is real food for thought. So thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you, guys. It was my pleasure.
And thank you for joining us. Join us in a few weeks for another exciting show. And to all the listeners, until then, have a great day.